dance party. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SkepTalk on the Line Network. I am Shannon Q, and I will be your host for today, and I am joined by somebody I am super excited to co-host with me today. It is his first time here. Everybody, it's Brady Goodwin. Woo!
Yeah.
Say hi to the people.
What's going on, y'all? It's a pleasure to be here. Be nice. My first time.
Yes, you're going to kill it. I have no doubt in my mind. Before we get into taking calls, why don't you tell everybody who you are and where they can find you and what you're all about?
So name is Brady Goodwin, a.k.a. Be Good. My former a.k.a. was Fanatic, Phanatik, was a Christian rapper for a very long time, since the mid-90s, back when somebody like me would say hip hop was real. I was a Christian rapper for about 30 years and a proclaimer of the gospel message, born and raised in Philadelphia. I teach in Philadelphia, but about 6, maybe a little bit longer now, 6-7 years ago, I had a crisis of faith while I was in seminary. And after traveling the world, proclaiming the gospel message, I got to a point where I realized I could no longer proclaim that message and was scared for a very long time to investigate why I couldn't proclaim that message. I had a sense that, this may not really be true. And it wasn't until 2021, even though my faith was shaken years earlier, that I actually had the courage to dive in and investigate and realize, I cannot commend this to anyone else, and I don't believe it myself. And since then have been kind of fighting my way out of believing, thinking, living a Christian life, and found myself every day now talking to pastors and lay people who have similar questions, and I'm offering what little help I can give. And sometimes the help I can give is just helping to frame, these are the good questions that you need to be asking. And so that's how I spend a lot of my life, not all of it, but a lot of my life these days.
And I'm super excited to have you here with us. You've also written a book and you've started a podcast. You're really starting to kind of enter into the public foray more and more so. And as I've said to you before, I think lots of people should listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, check us out, Ichabod, YouTube/Ichabod, ICHAPOD. The book is Let There Be Gaslight. And so you can check all that out.
Awesome. So you've been kind of engaging in the public forum, mostly on Facebook for the longest time. So I'm anticipating some of your Facebook detractors should be lining up.
They said, they're going to come and try to, ask some questions. That'll be fun.
What kind of call are you looking for? Like if you had an ideal caller, who would you throw down the gauntlet?
Wow, that's a great question. Ideal caller to me is anybody who thinks you have a good reason why I should believe the Bible. I'm open to good reasons, but I feel like I've spent a lot of time kind of sifting through a lot of this. I'm not a science guy. I'm not a philosophy guy, even though I've been wetting my beak in a lot of those areas. I had to dive into that to kind of fight my way out of the faith. But the Bible, I was a biblicist. I loved the Bible. I still love it. I just don't see it as divine. So calls that get into the Bible, what it says, what it means, how we can interpret it, those will see me light up. Other calls, I might kind of shrink to the back and just, watch you do your thing.
Well, if the people are calling in about the Bible, I might shrink to the back with a big smile on my face and drink my water and watch you do your thing. So that would have been my answer for you. I want somebody to call in and have some Bible questions for you, because I know after reading your book and chatting with you and knowing you for a little while that you can hold your own. You can hold your ground when it comes to...
Hey, we'll see. There's a lot of people that are lining up to challenge me, so we'll see.
Well, we'll see if they call in. Let's hope that they're up to putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to that. Are you ready to take? We've already got a call in the queue, so there is still lines open. There's lines open for theists. Get in while you can in case the queue fills up. Do not wait. So call in so that you can. Yeah, I mean, I'm here too. If I were you, I'd want to talk to Brady more than me, but I'm up for the challenge. I'm here too. I can answer your questions. Oh, and now people are starting to call it. All right, cool. Are you ready to take our first call? Our first call is actually not even a. Our first call is actually not even about religion. It doesn't seem like I'm not. Well, kind of. It's mostly about. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just start talking to Andrew. Yep. I think Andrew and I are going to have some disagreements. Hi, Andrew. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
I cannot hear. Hello?
Andrew.
I cannot hear.
You may be on mute, Andrew.
I cannot hear you. Hello?
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I tested
scary, Andrew?
So his audio should be working.
There it is.
Andrew.
Hello? I can hear you now.
He that has ears, let him hear.
It seems like
we're not hearing.
Me, but not you guys. So hold on. Let me.
I can hear now. I can hear you now.
Perfect. Brady and I'll just.
I can hear
okay.
Now.
Can you caller? Can you hear Shannon talking? Shannon, can you say something?
Hi,
I can hear Shannon. Yes.
Andrew,
okay,
we're looking to talk to you, but we cannot hear you.
Hello?
Okay, Andrew, hello?
No.
Hello?
Andrew. We can't hear Andrew.
Seems like
Uh-oh.
I can hear you when my mic's on, which doesn't make any sense.
And the audience is saying that they can hear Andrew, but we cannot hear Andrew.
Really? Uh-oh.
Oh,
yeah.
I can hear
him.
Brady and I can't hear Andrew. The audience is wondering why we're being so rude to Andrew right now, probably.
now go ahead and talk, Andrew.
Hello?
Andrew?
Hello? Hello? Yes,
Nope.
yes. Hello, hello.
Wait,
Wow.
Andrew?
Sorry. I
Hello?
clicked the, hold on,
Hello?
caller. I'm sorry.
Hello?
Gotta love tech issues with a new producer.
I'm picturing the old school operator trying to plug in calls. You know,
that
you
is
call the
what
right
it
number
feels like. So I've got you guys plugged into his audio channel. Yes, I understand, caller, but they can't hear you. So I'm trying to solve that right now.
So Andrew can hear us, but we can't hear Andrew. We could play a fun game of telephone where I watch the chat and they tell us what Andrew says.
It's also weird because I tested this beforehand and it should be going through, but
Is there something I can do on my end?
I don't believe so. This is all
See, because I'm the new guy, I'm tempted to think it's all my fault. I'm like, am I like Jonah here?
Say anything.
Throw me overboard so that the ship can actually get to where it's going.
Try talking now, caller.
Hello?
Yay.
We did it!
I did it.
Yeah.
Good show.
Victory! Hello, Andrew. You are on SkepTalk on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello. I want to briefly play a little bit of Fanatic's old song, and then I have a quick question for him, and then an actual question for Shannon, if that's okay.
Sure. We'll see how it goes. I'm hearing myself back.
I'm a huge fan because I grew up on Fanatic. He was like one of my favorite Christian rappers. All right. Were you guys able to hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now Who's the Man? One of my favorite songs. Yeah.
Hey, he says, Fanatic, to the fact that a life without him on top will only hurt us and leave our families following in lines behind him and curses. What do you think of that now?
Yeah. The fact that a life without him on top will only hurt us and leave our families following in lines behind those hearses. So I'm picturing a funeral procession. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm so new to this, but I'm hearing myself back as an echo. How do I unhear me?
1 second, maybe.
I can mute Andrew while you're talking because that might be where it's coming from because I'm hearing myself back as well.
1, 2.
Probably my fault.
Is that better?
I'm still hearing it. I'm still hearing it.
Yeah, me too.
Yikes. Is there anything I can
see if
close?
you can power through.
So sorry, guys. 1 second. Let me see if I do.
The audience isn't hearing the echo, so if you can power through while Arden's working on that.
Let me just check real quick. Is there anything? Headphones, speaker? No. All right, I'll try. I don't hear it anymore.
Okay, I fixed it.
Oh,
Thank
it's
goodness.
gone.
Okay, now we should
Yeah,
be good.
gone from you too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. What do I think about that line? I think at that time, in my mind, a life without Christ was detrimental because I thought Christ was the only way to have morals. And my worldview at the time is there's an afterlife, and Christ is the only way to get to the afterlife. And so I think I was speaking according to my worldview at the time that, yeah, without Christ, you're not going to have morals. And without Christ, you're going to still have an afterlife, but it's not going to be a nice one. It's going to be a very warm afterlife. And so that line was just another way to say, without Jesus in your life, there's pain in this life, pain for your family after this life is over for you, and then a little insinuation of pain for you in the afterlife. I still think there's pain in this life without Christ and with Christ. It's common to all men. And I think there's still pain for families after we're gone. Christ doesn't solve that even for the believer. That was kind of a very myopic way to kind of look at that. But now I don't see any reason to believe in an afterlife. So that whole part of it, I think, is gone from my equation. So not sure. There's probably some more juicy lines from my lyrics that you could pull up, but I don't know if that's as juicy as you thought it might have been. Is there anything else in there that you thought could be pulled out and kind of like contrasting to how I see things now, or did I miss something there?
No, this is just like one of my favorite songs, and I was just.
If Andrew's talking, we can't hear him again.
We're going to get it together. I just can't hear you, Andrew. Give us a minute here.
Okay, so
Hello?
Yeah, we can't hear Andrew again,
seems
Erden.
like when I
Echo's
turn
back.
on the thing that lets you guys hear him, that also
Andrew, are
causes
you there?
the echo. So
Yeah, I'm
trying
here.
to solve this.
Oh,
Got you.
perfect. Did you hear what
Yeah.
Be Good was just saying? And what's your response?
I'm sorry. Oh yeah.
What was your
I
response?
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. A life with or without Christ hurts us, especially in the afterlife. If you take away the afterlife, it still especially hurts us. And so this goes into my main question. It's pretty similar in regards to morality. A life without Him on top will only hurt us. I felt like when I would listen to that, having God above us to have a perfect moral standard was the best way for humanity to live. And so that goes into my next main question for, I guess, basically for Shannon, unless Fanatic wants to comment as well. And at the end of Fanatic's book, he mentioned this is the only life we have, so let's make the best of it. But my main point is, even without God, even by secular standards, I think an abortion is still wrong and evil. That which is moral is whatever maximizes human well-being as much as possible for everyone. Shannon, do you think that's a good definition of secular morality? That which is moral is whatever maximizes human well-being as much as possible for everyone.
I would also include prevention of harm. I think that would be in there as well. But that's a fair assessment, I would say, of how you would define morality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a Roman Catholic, I definitely agree with that definition. And so my final thing as my question is, in an abortion, a woman is destroying the well-being of another person for their own convenience. She is destroying. It seems like she's destroying the autonomy of her own child. I never even gave them a choice. So it
for their own convenience,
the choice and autonomy of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, for their own convenience,
Yeah.
Okay, first I'm going to hold issue with that, but I'm not going to stay focused on it because it's going to detract from the primary point that you're attempting to make. The primary point you're attempting to make.
I'm curious, Andrew, do you see how phrasing it that way kind of poisons the well?
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to poison the well.
But when you phrase it as doing it for her convenience, do you just see how that kind of is like you're setting up the stage for your victory just by saying that? Do you see that?
I'm trying to. I'm listening.
Okay, I'll let Shannon go. I just want to see if you saw what was going on there. Okay.
I don't see it.
Okay.
But listen.
Well, you know what? I'll even accept it, because even if it was for her own convenience, I think that when we're looking at moral systems, bodily autonomy is something that should be incorporated into moral systems. And I think that all women and people who give birth have the right to jurisdiction over their own body, the same way that people who can't give birth have jurisdiction over their own body. And nobody has the right to access or utilize any component of my body to sustain their life, the same way that nobody has the right to access or utilize components of your body to sustain their life. If you state otherwise, then you're special pleading. You're creating a special set of circumstances where women are exempt from the rights that you enjoy and take for granted, because you're using a different set of considerations.
Yeah.
So unless you incorporate bodily autonomy. Okay, there we go. Well, nailed it then.
I don't think. Yeah. I agree with you on the definition of secular morality. I think it's a good definition, and I think it can be applicable even for Christians. And what you just said, that does apply to the woman. That's why it's such a complicated issue. But everything you just said, I think you're also violating that principle, because you're not applying it to the baby. So it seems to me like you're also taking away their autonomy and their potential choice.
I am applying it to the baby. 100%. So the baby can't sustain, and I love how people use baby, because in most instances it's, an embryo that, or, a blastocyst or like a zygote. In most instances, that is what is being, that's the pregnancy that's being terminated. That's what's taking place during the abortion. It's not a baby. If it was a baby, then it would be a birth. And then I suppose the onus would be on society, should we value that baby to sustain its life wherever possible outside of the woman's body. If a pregnancy is terminated later phase, that's an interesting conversation to have. But prior to that, there is no ability for it to sustain life without it having access to the body of somebody like me. And I'm simply just relinquishing that access. I'm just saying, you no longer have access to my body. I relinquish that access. I've used the example before, and most people who argue against abortion will agree with me that if I stab you, for example, if we are in a room, it's just me and you and a doctor, let's just say, and I stab you in that room, you are about to bleed out, you're about to die. The doctor says to me, I can save his life, but the only way to save his life is for you to provide him a blood transfusion. You would not argue that I am morally obligated to give that blood transfusion, because once you extrapolate it out, that means that other people, based on your moral system, have rights to your body in a specific set of circumstances. Men don't tend to like that when it applies to them, but tend to be very ardent about it when it applies to us.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're saying the person who stabbed you does not have the right to give you blood?
They have the right to give you blood should they want to. You don't have the right to force them to, because that opens up another set of moral issues, right? And the reason I say I stab you in that circumstance is because quite often I'm met with the rebuttal if I say, hey, why aren't you donating blood? Why aren't you donating a kidney? Why aren't you donating a part of your liver? If it's a moral obligation to provide a component of your body to sustain another person's life, if the opportunity avails itself to do that, right? If that's a moral obligation, if it's an immoral imperative, then everybody should be obligated to do that the same way that women are obligated to provide their uterus and everything about their body to sustain somebody else's life for an extended period of time. So people will say back to me, well, the woman put herself in that situation, which A, isn't always the case. And B, is irrelevant, because in this instance, in this scenario, I caused that for you, but you would still probably, I would guess, not argue that we should live in a system where if somebody could argue that you caused somebody else's misfortune, that they're now entitled to components of your body, which is the very argument that most people who are pro-life make when it comes to women's bodies, but they don't extend it out to their own bodies when push comes to shove.
What if you stabbed your own child and you have custody over that child? So it's not just a stranger.
I mean, you'd be a bullshit person, but I don't think like you'd be somebody. I think it's morally reprehensible, but I still wouldn't argue that you have to force that person to donate a part of their body. Like, even if it's not just blood, let's go something that would be a little bit more invasive. Let's say I punched a kid in the kidney and now their kidneys failed and they need a kidney. It's my kid. They need my kidney because I'm going to be a match because it's my kid. Do I have to donate a kidney to that child? No, of course I don't. Should I? Should I is a different argument. Maybe I should. Maybe that's something because I caused that scenario that I should do. But do I have to? No. Would I? Probably. I mean, I wouldn't punch a kid in the kidney anyway, but like,
I don't know why. This seems like it's getting eerily close to the biblical ethic of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I don't know if that's where this is going. Like, do you want to play by complete biblical ethics?
Right. No, I'm not playing biblical ethics because then it's just the Bible says so, and I don't know how constructive that would be. But I'm going by the secular moral definition of morality. That which is moral is whatever maximizes human well-being as much as possible for everyone. And I don't think Shannon would be doing that if she hurts her own child and refuses to give blood for her own child, even if it was an accident. If she got into a car crash, and so you didn't purposely do it, you got into a car crash, and your child is hurt and your child needs blood, but you're saying I don't have any moral obligation or any legal obligation to give blood to my child, even though I caused the car crash by accident. I don't know how you're following your own moral principles. I see an inconsistency.
I don't have any obligation. Well, I am though, because you're not seeing the broader perspective here. Is that those moral principles in that specific context they don't just apply to me. They extrapolate out, right? So if you're going to assess morality like on a case by case basis, you're going to end up with a very skewed moral system. It needs to be able to be extrapolated out on a societal level. And if you're saying that we have rights to each other's bodies, which is functionally what you're arguing, right? Like you're saying in a moral system where we prioritize well-being and avoidance of harm, and those are our morals, we would have a moral obligation to do something like that. That's what you're saying. We would have a moral obligation to do something like that. And that would extrapolate out societally, right? Like whether or not I caused the car accident, whether or not it was an accident, whether or not you caused the car accident. If I accidentally caused a car accident and you were a match for the person in that car accident, and without it killing you, you could give parts of your body to save that person, there is no obligation to do that, right? Otherwise, forced organ harvesting and forced blood harvesting would be a component of society underneath that, in that system. And that would be a system that was a detriment broadly, because you would be forcing people into a situation where they no longer have bodily autonomy, and your bodily autonomy should take precedence. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Do we have more time, or?
Well, we're starting to get several calls in. We have a few more moments. Is there something else that you wanted to follow up with?
You keep mentioning it to the whole society. I'm saying just for your own child. Just for your own child, because you kind of put them in that situation. I'm not saying
walk through fire
everyone
and
is
glass
obligated if you get into a car crash.
I would walk through fire and glass for my kid, just to prevent his feelings from getting hurt. That's what I would do for my kid. But do I think that other people probably should do that? Yes. Do I think that it's a good idea to make it an obligation for people to donate parts of themselves? Not just to my kid. You're using your kid because then you elicit an emotional response, right? Like I have an emotional response because I have a son. I have a 12-year-old son who I would do anything for. But if somebody else's mother, father, sister, brother, child, daughter, son, whoever on the opposite side of the world, if something happens to them and a part of my body can sustain their life and they're going to lose their life otherwise, it shouldn't be beholden upon me to give a part of my body to that other person, familial relationship or otherwise. Most people focus on familial relationships because they know that it'll elicit an emotional response, because they're avoiding the component of extrapolation. That you want to bring me back to an emotional state so that you can say, see, ha, 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 obviously you would do it. But would you, like, if you found out that somebody in Afghanistan required a piece of liver, and you could lose a piece of your liver and still be fine, and you were one of the people in the world that was a match for it, would you be obligated to, and do you think it would be a good idea to obligate you to provide a part of your liver to sustain that person's life, and for that to happen to everybody everywhere all the time? Should that be a mandate? Like, would you say yes or no to that?
No, because I would say no, that violates bodily autonomy, which is why I made the distinction, not to elicit an emotional response, but because the situation is not any random person, like you're having a baby for any random person or anyone else's choice. I think the distinction is valid because it is a familial relationship, and I don't know how I don't know how science can tell you that's not a baby. You can't get that. You cannot test that, and you can't test that in a lab. So, but I think that's a different topic.
Well, I mean, it's just a bundle of cells initially. I mean, as somebody who has actually carried a baby more than once, and like, I mean, under your paradigm, God took one out of me because I had a miscarriage. So, I mean, you'll have to take that one up with him, right?
So was my wife. So was my wife. It was really hard on
and
us.
It's awful. It's exceptionally awful. It's horrible. Like physically and mentally, it's horrible. But I mean, on the opposite side of the coin, if you believe in a God, then there's a passage in the Bible where God, if you think your wife is cheating in Numbers, you can feed your wife the bitter water, and if she got pregnant with another man, then God will abort that baby. I mean, so within your moral paradigm, even if you look in the Bible, then God, mandated abortions under specific scenarios. So, I mean, all of it becomes convoluted.
Yeah,
I guess your emotional appeal is essentially that, like, well, it's a familiar relationship, so you should care, but it doesn't need to extrapolate out. I just want you very much to care and sacrifice the right to yours and people like you's bodily autonomy because it makes me feel better, I guess. Or I don't know, maybe that's just a woman's place, is to be a baby factory. Like, it doesn't take into account things like rape as well, which is something that is valid in a conversation like this. It's not just because, it's convenient, or medical issues. Some women have medical issues that require them, even though it's the hardest decision they've ever made, to terminate a pregnancy, because otherwise there's a high risk that they could die or suffer permanent damage. Like, when you say, I think that people like to frame it as, well, it's convenient for the woman, as though we're all just, in line getting our weekend abortion because we all enjoy them so much. And that's just, not practically the case.
Yeah. That's where the extremes are leading to, what you just mentioned. But I don't think that's most women. But the extremes are like
that's
that.
Who? Says you? Says you based on what? Based on your
the
attitude
Shout Your
towards
Abortion
women?
campaigns. What do you mean my attitude
The Shout
towards
Your
women?
Abortion campaigns doesn't have anything to do with people being proud, air quotes, of their abortion or using it as a form of birth control. It's a manner of empowering women to admit the fact that they've had one and come out from the dark, because people have been making us feel as though we need to hide behind curtains and be ashamed of ourselves for getting what in most cases is important medical care. So being able to have a public conversation about it where we can be candid and support each other is a way of breaking that stigma so that we can have more constructive conversations instead of them being framed like we're all just whores who want to have abortions because that's so much easier than a condom and a birth control pill. That's bananas.
I didn't frame it that way. I did not frame it that way.
Andrew, if you remember, I asked you, do you see how framing it the way that you did was problematic? And you said you don't see it. This is what I meant. The way that you framed it, you did put it that way.
I didn't call
this
women
is your
whores.
opportunity.
I did not call women whores.
This is your opportunity to see what you said you couldn't see a minute ago. The way Shannon just explained it to you, maybe you could see now why, when you say they're doing it for convenience, she just broke down what that translates to. I heard it instantly. She just walked you through it. This is your chance to see it.
Okay.
All right. Well, we do have several other calls, so I do have to let you go. I feel like we've reached an impasse, and we'll just go around and around and around in circles with this forever. But feel free to call back again sometime. Maybe we can continue the conversation, and enjoy the rest of your day. Sorry we couldn't initially hear you, and it took a little bit to get in the call, but I am glad that we finally were able to, so that we could have this conversation. All right. Have a good rest of your day, Andrew.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I've been paying attention to Jimmy and Arden in the chat. The echo is they fixed the echo now. We're good to go.
Nailed it.
So yeah.
Arden's killing it. Arden is killing it. Yeah. Hashtag Team Arden. I'm glad you heard that too, because so many people say, oh, out of convenience. And that's absolutely the intention, is to make it seem as though women are using it as a form of birth control, because it's just, it's infuriating to me.
Well, I didn't want to say much because I do think it's primarily a woman's issue. But when he granted to the secular worldview and said, okay, if we're just trying to maximize well-being, then you're not maximizing the well-being of your child. But it seemed to be there was no thought for how are we maximizing the well-being of women. Like, that was left out of the conversation. So I was waiting for that to come up.
Yeah, it won't. It won't in those conversations, because we're perceived as incubators and obligatory incubators in that situation. That's how we're perceived in that scenario, which is, I've had so many of these conversations. Some have gone well, some have flipped my bitch switch, because it's exceptionally difficult to even listen to somebody try to justify to me why I shouldn't have the rights over my own body, and be calm. Over and over and over again. People love to call about that when I'm on, which is fine. I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, it can become. You're calling me because I'm a woman, and you want to put me in my place. You want to teach me about what I should do with my body. All right, let's go.
I get it.
All right, my friend, are you ready for another call, or do you have any other commentary?
Let's go. Nope, let's go.
All right, Let's do it. Let's talk to Shane. Hello. Whoop. See if I can click the button. No, I'm the problem. Hi, Shane. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, guys. How you guys doing today?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Firstly, I want to say you guys are both awesome. Love listening to you. Love listening to the way you navigate different conversations. I'll keep my questions short. A little bit of backstory. I'm a recent deconstruction not deconvert's the wrong word. I'm still in progress of my deconstruction from fundamental evangelicalism. And I working through a bunch of different questions. But one of the big things that kind of pushed me over the edge was finally being able to admit that I could not support my view on inerrancy. And it's a presupposition that you must oppose upon the text when you have those conversations. I was finally able to get past that point, but I'm having a lot of conversations with people that I love dearly who are still on that side, and it seems that they can't get past that. It is when I talk to them about it, they are unable to even fathom that inerrancy isn't a thing. So I was curious to either of you, Fanatic, I think you might have a little more, dealt with this more personally. I don't know, maybe Shannon, you have too, but
he just cut out for me. Can you still hear?
Yeah, I lost him.
Shane, your phone just cut out just before you were about to ask your question. Hello? Are you still there? Yes. Okay.
Dang
yep, we can hear you now. Sorry. Do you mind repeating the question that you were just about to pose?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. Any advice for someone who has left deconstruction, left inerrancy, talking to people who still hold inerrancy and having good conversations and getting past that? So.
Wow. For anybody listening, biblical inerrancy is the idea that the Bible does not contain any error. God is truth, and he cannot lie. He's all-knowing, and an all-knowing, all-powerful God who does not lie and who is truth is going to communicate nothing but truth. So any counterfactual, inaccurate, impossible, historically, scientifically, statements we find in the Bible, I think it was Augustine, and before him, the early church father / heretic Origen, who said anytime the Bible looks like it's wrong, we basically have to interpret what it says figuratively. So basically, it's unfalsifiable. The Bible can never be wrong. So it's kind of difficult, the people who are holding on to inerrancy, to get them to let that go, because it's almost all they have, especially if they are of the tradition where they don't believe in the spiritual gifts, if they don't believe the spiritual gifts are still active, like speaking in tongues and healing and prophecy and all that. If you are the type of Christian that does not buy into, believe, or practice those things, you need an inerrant Bible, because other than that, what miraculous thing can you cling to? At least if you think that there's still miracles, the Bible doesn't have to be inerrant, because your God is still doing, look, so-and-so got healed, or so-and-so got a prophecy. But if you get rid of those things, you need an inerrant Bible, because how are you going to prove to anyone that your God is still active without that miraculous book? So it's very difficult to get someone who clings to inerrancy to let it go. But it's very easy to put them in a position where they have to find themselves bending over backwards to make the Bible still be true when it's clearly wrong. So without being, if you follow me on Facebook, this is going to sound hypocritical, because I agitate a lot on Facebook. But one of the things that you can do without being adversarial is show people the number of ways they have to continually find ways to justify how the Bible is not wrong when it apparently is. And the more of those things you put before someone, I think at some point they have to, like with me, one of the first shifts for me was I had to shift from inerrancy to infallibility. The Bible's not inerrant, it's infallible. It won't let you down in matters of faith and practice, though it could be possibly inaccurate in history or, science or whatever. Me and the guys on my podcast, we have an episode called The 6 Stages of Deconversion. And one of the first stages is when you lose inerrancy. And after that, it's the fundamentalists, as much as people don't like to put themselves in that camp, the fundamentalists are right. It's a slippery slope, because once you let go of inerrancy, it's almost like there goes the ball game. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that sort of was part of my process and sort of what I would recommend. I don't know if Shannon has anything to add there.
I'm interested to hear Shane's feedback, because I had the type of faith that I never perceived the Bible that way, like from jump. I was I was an Anglican, and so I didn't. Mostly because it wasn't presented to me. What I knew of the Bible was carefully curated for me, right? Like if I went to a Bible study, it was carefully curated. It wasn't, read it start to finish. It was read this passage and then read this passage and then read this passage, and kind of jumped around pretending on what we were studying or meditating on is probably not the right word, but we were focusing our spirits on at that time. So inerrancy was never a linchpin for me. Morality and the soul were linchpins for me, more so. Shane, I'm interested in what feedback you might have. Is there like a specific instance that comes to mind, like an example that you might want assistance with?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that feedback. It is, in retrospect, I guess that is kind of what got me to where I am, is just being flooded with all those things. And I'm like, maybe. So I'm trying to think of specific examples. I'm going back in my memory, and most of the conversations typically get to this point where their only response is, you just gotta trust. Like you just, or one of them is like you're trying to understand, like, a God who's incomprehensible,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not trying to decipher the secrets of the Trinity. I'm just trying to see, did Jesus say this or did Jesus say that? And there seems to be some mental block that they, it is such a matter of fact that they cannot see beyond it. I'm trying not to be prideful. I want to try to stay humble.
No.
I don't want to, just assume everything. But like, there's a roadblock. But I think it is, like you had said, just it took me to see all those examples, and maybe it is continued conversations over a period of time of bringing up these issues, and then maybe someday they can make that switch flip. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I have very many people in my world who, almost like what Shannon experienced, they basically tell me that they didn't come from a tradition, or they very early on got into a tradition where inerrancy wasn't important, and they saw the Bible as they wouldn't say liberal, but they had a much more progressive understanding of how the Bible works. My only issue with that is not how the biblical authors saw the Bible. Like when you look at what the New Testament authors say about the Old Testament, they did not give it the latitude that we're willing to give it. And so because of that, I'm not willing to do that. I'm like, if I'm going to believe it, I'm going to believe it the way that it was presented. And if I can't do that, I don't know where that leaves me. So I think one of the issues is kind of holding people's feet to the fire. And it's hard to do when you love people and you're watching, you don't want to seem like a jerk. You don't want to hurt people. But the idea of God's just incomprehensible. You're trying to understand an incomprehensible God and all that. I would hold their feet to the fire a little bit to say, okay, there's a verse in scripture, right? It says the secret things belong to God, but the revealed things belong to us and our children forever. Why is it that the things that have been revealed that are supposed to belong to us, why do they keep getting put back over into the category of, oh, those are secret things? Like you said, I don't want the secret things. God can keep those. But the revealed things are now being called secret things. We don't get to know what happened in the first week of creation because maybe that's something that God's just not going to tell us. But he told us, right? No, it's a hidden thing now. It's a secret thing. So I think just holding people's feet to the fire of, if this is revelation, either God's a horrible revealer or there's no God behind this. I mean, we have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny that you bring up, I believe Deuteronomy 29:29, because we were trained to quote that, whenever we came to a spot where theologies were, apparently in contradiction. It was my quick, Deuteronomy 29:29, secret things. But the second half of that, oh man, that was great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, good
Brady's
stuff.
away with words.
Hey.
For sure. Do you have any other follow-up questions? Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No. Again, I'm still in a long process of trying to, adjust to new thoughts and new ways of outlook in life. So, you guys just keep doing your thing. I'm going to keep watching and listening, and hopefully I'll turn out for better at the end.
Journey well,
call
Shane.
back and yes, exactly. Tell us how you're progressing. Keep up with us. Let us know how things go along your journey, and I wish you good luck with it. We're here if you want to bounce ideas off of somebody that's, not going to yell at you that you just don't understand God because he's incomprehensible. We got your back.
I appreciate it.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Have a good rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye. So hard when you're on a path of deconversion too. You can so often feel like such an island, right? Like we've had conversations about this before. You're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Because you're so surrounded by people who mean the most in your life, and either they don't want to hear about it or they ardently disagree with you and they're trying to prevent you from following your own path so that you can remain the person with the beliefs that they want you to be. It's difficult.
It's amazing because I think I told you this when we spoke on your podcast. I went through this process. I did not know about the line. I didn't know about, Dillahunty or Paula Gia or Shannon Q. I didn't know about any of that. And so my island was very lonely, very dark, some dark times in my life. And so I'm like, it's amazing for me to be sitting here now offering to people something that I really didn't, I could have had if I known this existed, but I didn't know it existed. And it's just crazy.
I'm glad for the people that do, because it's so difficult. Like when I was deconverting, this stuff like this may have existed. I'm sure the atheist experienced it, but like I had no idea. And everybody I wanted to talk to about it was either entirely disinterested and like, why do you keep talking about this? Like nobody cares. Like keep that to yourself. Or didn't want to hear it from me because they wanted to argue with me about why I was wrong and why what I was doing was bad. Wow. And there really wasn't anything in between. Like it's difficult to find people in your life to help you grapple with it in the way that is necessary. So that's why I'm glad that people are finding this a good venue to do it. And I hope that Shane has a good journey, because I know it can be difficult. And I hope that if he needs to, he knows that he can call us back here and we'll bounce more ideas off of him. Yeah. All right. If our lines are still open. We do still have room for some more callers. What are you theists afraid of? I don't even think that we have a theist caller right now, guys. Everybody's scared of you, Brady. That's the way I'm reading it. Everybody's terrified.
They're loading their clips up. They're loading their clips up right now. I see them coming.
Cowards. Bunch of cowards sitting in the back, not saying anything. We do have another call though, so I am going to take it. Okay. And not just theists, if you're an atheist and you want to call, we of course will take your calls as well. There are lines open, so please call in, have a chat with us. All right, we are going to talk to Rich. Hi, Rich. You're on the line. What would you like to talk about today? Hi.
Hey, how you doing today?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm here. All right. Great. I'm a little hoarse. I got a cold. It's not COVID, okay? It's not COVID, and it can't come through the phone.
Oh, thank goodness. Get my mask.
So, of course, you call the show and you have a question that you or a discussion you have in mind, and then 45,000 other things pop up into your mind as you're listening. But I'm going to try to first talk about consciousness. And Shannon, I know that you spend a lot of time in this area. And I'm an atheist, been an atheist for years, and I've coalesced it down to consciousness is just the awareness that we exist. Well, the awareness that the things that are going on in our brain, we are aware of. And I think that's what we consider consciousness. I know consciousness is also the fact that the brain is alive and a lot of stuff is going on. But if we weren't aware that it was going on and we could not look back at ourselves as seeing ourselves as an individual and delineate us, that wouldn't exist. So isn't consciousness really based on that? It's just a question. I've thought about this a while.
I have slightly different definition of consciousness because I'm not entirely certain that it involves an aspect of self-awareness. Like the awareness that I am conscious, I think first means that I have to be conscious, right? So I think that it proceeds from that and is not in fact the same thing. I think that consciousness is the state of there being something that it is like to exist. So being able to have feelings, process experiences, perhaps you'd need to be self-aware. No, I don't know if you would. Maybe it's difficult for me to conceptualize what it would be like to be conscious without self-awareness, because I have like a very human-centric view, and obviously we have self-awareness. But yeah, I think it's that there's something that it's like to be this particular lump of matter would be what I think consciousness is. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
maybe we're saying the same sort of thing.
Yeah, and then I had another question in follow up, but just to touch on quick about the anti-abortion movement. I refuse to call them pro-life because they're not pro-life. You look at it's been coming out late. It's been coming out lately and this guy was talking about how the moral and the good for all. Why do they just totally ignore the fact that in all the states that are anti-abortion, the maternal death rates, the women's death rates during pregnancy is much higher than anywhere else? Why do they refuse to deal with that? Like that doesn't even exist.
Because that's not part of the paradigm that they within when it comes to where their arguments are coming from. They also ignore medical privacy, like as something that they take for granted themselves. Because otherwise, how do you know a woman has abortion unless you're peeking at her medical records, which should be private and belong just to her?
That's right. And another thing is also is they talk about and I don't want to sound condescending or because I have two children that I love dearly, a grandson that this 7-year-old runs my life. Here I am, 6 feet 230, and this 7-year-old runs my life. But they talk about the preciousness of our life. Oh, God loves every life, and God loves every life. If you take into account from the conception of a child to them being born, and even the first year, almost half of all children die. If you talk about miscarriages, if you talk about everything, like miscarriages is like 30-some%. Then you start looking around the world about the infant mortality rates and all this stuff. Their God does a better job.
I think at base it's about, misogynistic control. I think that there's a perception of the types of roles, not on measure, not everybody, but on measure, I think that it's about misogynistic control, that there's a role that women should play. And one of the aspects of that role is mother. And there's a sense of ownership that, the child you place inside me belongs to you. And thus, I'm required to be an obligatory incubator to that child because that is an aspect of my role. And if women start to have their own empowerment and autonomy and can make more of those decisions for themselves about what they're going to do with their body and when they are and are not are going to have a child, which is why a lot of them are not pro-contraception either. They're anti-contraception for some of the same reasons, because if you keep women complacent and keep us
barefoot and pregnant, and
if you keep us pregnant or in a child taking role, which most men don't take on at a 50-50 rate, especially the men that have this attitude, then we're easier to keep and maintain because we can become. It's more likely that we're going to become a dependent in that scenario. And if we are if we're likely to become a dependent, then it doesn't matter if we could choose somebody better than you. We have no choice but to be with you because of additional connections. I think all of that plays into it. And anybody who says that it doesn't play into it, I think is just putting their head in the sand. Like I said, on measure, but I think that is no small part of it.
If I could add to that,
I agree with you. And
I was going to say, if I can add to that, I think as a Christian, I would have never assented to that. I would have never agreed with that. Because for me, one of the issues that was used to put in front of that, to block me from seeing that agenda really, is the Imago Dei, what they call the image of God. The reason why we can't allow abortion, for things like abortion to take place, is because that unborn fetus it's the image of God being formed there. So we have to let the image of God continue to develop and be born. But then the point that you brought up, Rich, just how many quote unquote images of God are lost in the womb just through spontaneous abortion, or after birth continue to meet situations in the world where they're not able to live. The infant mortality rate soars in places where there's poverty. So it seems that God is not as concerned about the image of God as we are. So there's something else going on there. And I just wanted to add that I think the Imago Dei is what the Christian would say. No, that's why we care about the abortion issue, But then when you peel back the layers, you realize, like you said, this really does keep women at a point where they are much more easy to control, to predict, because they're going to be dependent. And I think if people were to reckon with that, they would see how this issue is not as puritanical as people kind of present it.
And it's often frustrating to me that it seems. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's often frustrating to me that they humanize, embryos and fetuses more so than they are willing to, humanize the people carrying them, mm-hmm. and B, live children. Right? Right. They don't if they could channel that kind of energy into, these are the same people that are picketing school lunch programs because they don't want an extra, $5 in tax a year to come off of their paycheck to, support school lunches for children who are, out wandering around the world alive. But they'll spend all kinds of money on placards to go wander around in front of abortion clinics and donate money to people who say that they're trying to prevent abortion, and donate money to churches who will go out and picket abortions. But they don't walk that life when it comes to actual children. It's so much easier for them to dehumanize actual children in the world. I think it's because, once that embryo, that fetus, that child is born, once it is out of that woman, they're more able to make it somebody else's problem. To say, okay, well, the mother should have, the father should have, the neighborhood should have, the school should have. But but before that child was born, they were all about it.
You're right. Crazy. I didn't
have to do shit.
I had this. Yep, I had that discussion the other day. I said to this guy, I said, so you realize that before a child is born, as they walk up to their father and says, listen, we're looking for this very, very rare protein that is in the human blood that this child, and I made this up, that this child needs, this embryo needs, or it will die. And since you're the father, can we prick your finger and get a drop of your blood to test? And if he says no, guess what happens? That embryo dies in that mother. No one says anything. No one gives a shit about it. That father says, no, you can't prick my finger. But it's just, you can't prick my finger.
Right.
You can literally not prick that man's finger to get a milligram of blood to test to see if that protein exists in him for his fetus to live.
Yeah. He would have the right to refuse in that
scenario.
Medically, yeah. Medically, he would.
Think about how
it's an interesting scenario.
And fucking. Yeah, and I always throw this at them all the time. I says, the most conservative thing is that there's spontaneous abortions and miscarriages of over 30% of the children that are conceived. You realize that, right? People look, no, that's not true. I say, yeah, it is. Well, God has his way. Oh, God has his way. And then I've gotten to the point, the moral arguments about it, I don't give a shit about. I don't care. I hate to say this, it sounds callous, but if a woman chooses to have 8 abortions a year, that's what she chooses. When does it become immoral? It's the same thing about slut shaming. I always ask my friends, so how many men does she have to have in the frequency for her to become a slut? Tell me exactly. And as a black man and fanatic, you know this, having these conversations in black barbershops, they get heated. And I go right at it because and I'm that atheist in the black barbershop with the guy who's cutting the hair, who's the minister. I think if you come to Rochester, New York, you would love these. You would lose it. You would want to go there every day. But having said that, you would. It is amazing. We have these most amazing, dynamic, anger, laughing. We're all friends. There's 2 of us that are atheists, And everybody else is sort of on the fence, scared. But then there's the one guy who's the minister's son, who's the minister, and he wants to, and we go at it, and I put these type of scenarios, including when they talk about the soul, I just look at them and say Alzheimer's, and they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "That's all I said. Think about it." But so the moral piece, we have to learn how to defeat that moral piece, because I really don't think it's. I think, to your point, Shannon, is pulling on heartstrings. But the morality of the argument, I think, if you start looking at it, it's not that good.
Well, they don't even see them as human either, though. Right? Like, have you ever heard this scenario? Like, you're in a fertility clinic and there's a fridge with 5,000 fertilized embryos in it. And on the other side of the room is one live human child. You can only grab one. You can either grab 5,000 embryos or one child. Every single one of them will say they're going to grab the child. So that means that you just sacrificed 5,000 lives for one in that scenario. But in that scenario, when push comes to shove, they don't see those vials with embryos as actual human life. Once you implant that into a woman, I guess that's a game changer, even though nothing about the constitution of it changes. So
nothing at all. And what are the rates? That's why they put 5 or 6 embryos in a woman, because there's a lot of that failure rate.
Most of them.
So now, if you're putting those embryos in that woman, those 5 embryos, and 4 of them died. Now, have you caused an abortion? Is the doctor guilty of something? Has he done something
But they don't
wrong?
want to see new ones. They just want to tell me what to do.
Oh yeah.
I'm inclined to acquiesce to that request.
Oh, don't. And I don't. Even as a man with a daughter and nieces, and I don't back down. I don't. And growing up, fanatic, I grew up in a world like yours. In the black church, where I tell people this and they look at me like I'm crazy. Where we'd be at the dinner table and they start singing, and before you know, they're clapping and praising the Lord. And I'm thinking, can I eat my fucking dinner? And people don't.
I hope none of my family is watching this right now. We got Easter dinner coming up. We're all going to be gathered around a table for Easter dinner.
How many times? Come on. Family gatherings. Come on, fanatic. Come on, let's be honest. How many times that's happened to you? You're looking like, oh God, here it comes. You see it coming. It's like you see it bubbling to the surface. I'm telling you, Shannon,
I used to be the one to lead it to the surface.
Oh my gosh! Honestly, I did it too. Shh, don't tell anybody. It's been 30-something years. But Shannon, it's an experience. Fanatic, you need to take Shannon to an Easter dinner. She needs to experience this firsthand.
Everyone's got their family traditions. I'm sure everyone's trying to find a way to sneak out.
Oh my gosh! But I have to say, it's crazy as in my family. Like I said, that everything is about God. It's every text that we have, and we have the groups. But they do give me deference, and I have to admit that no one comes at me. Everyone knows I'm an atheist, but no one talks about it. I don't talk about it until I have to talk about it.
I'm glad you have that supportive environment. We do have to let you go, though. We do have another couple calls in the queue. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have the best rest of your day. Enjoy Easter dinner. See you later.
You guys too. Bye.
Bye. Oh, it's nice. It was just like a call of support.
Yeah.
Love it. Just
commemoration.
I see the chat is suggesting that I need a coffee table. I do. Tell Paul I need a coffee table. Are you aware
is there a deadline? I've seen the comments and I can infer what's going on. Is there a deadline to make a decision here, or is this just an ongoing battle?
It's just an ongoing battle. It may never end. One day I'm just going to show up with a coffee table and be like, what now? What are you going to do?
See, I'm looking for a creative coffee table for my house. If I can get a creative enough one, then I'm going to get one. Yeah.
Do you not have a coffee table?
I have one, but it was handed down.
Table.
I have one that was handed down from my mother. It used to be hers, and I'm going to get rid of it. And I don't think I'm going to get a new one unless I can find like a hewn tree trunk or something that's just like the most creative idea for a coffee table.
Okay, I'm on your team. Like, I think you should have whatever coffee table floats your boat. I would settle for just about anything. I was looking. We have one of those couches that is like L-shaped. And there's like a table that you can slide underneath it in the corner, and then you can slide it out. I was like, maybe I could get away with that.
that way you both win. You both win,
right?
That's like the perfect compromise. Indeed.
It's a fair compromise. There's people in the chat who probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but my partner is staunchly anti-coffee table, and I'm staunchly, I don't want to kick over drinks all day. Let's get a coffee table. But anyway.
Oh, so you guys are setting your drinks on the floor?
I'm not. I have a tiny tray that sits on the couch, and I put my drinks on the tray. But anytime the dog jumps up on the couch, I have to quickly grab everything on my tray.
Yeah. No end tables at the end of the couch or anything like that?
Nothing.
Wow. Oh,
Nothing.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I don't
end
get
tables
that,
is a whole. I'm not going to fight that battle. I'm not ready. I'm still trying to get the coffee.
That's a whole different kind of life. Wow. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
If it was up for him, we'd live in an empty warehouse with just a bed and a computer desk. I wish I was kidding. God, I wish I was kidding.
I was watching some debate with him, or he was critiquing somebody, and I think he was in a. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm confusing him with Aron Ra. He was in a warehouse, and the people that were critiquing his video were like, "Is that where he lives?" So when you said that, I was like, wait, is he really in a warehouse? Is that where he wants to be?
Apologia would absolutely live in a warehouse and be quite content with how his life was going.
Okay.
You'd have to live there alone, though. I'd be here at this house, just filling it with coffee tables. All right. We have a couple more calls. Next, we're going to talk to Carlos. Hey, Carlos, you were on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello. How you guys doing?
Hi. I'm good, thank you.
What's up?
Good. So I've been watching these debates for a while, ever since the early days of the atheist experience and such. And one thing that I've seen lots of. I'm an atheist, by the way. So one thing I've seen lots of Christians make the argument for is that if God doesn't exist, then life is meaningless. My contention with that is that life is objectively meaningless from like the bird's eye view of the universe sense, even if God does exist. Like if God exists in whatever form God exists in, he's basically a mind with superpowers. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that he bestows objective meaning on existence. It's maybe the buck stops with him in terms of power, but it doesn't mean that some objective meaning is there when he's there. And I've never seen atheists push back on Christians when they make that sort of argument, at least in that way. And I'm wondering if maybe I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that would be. I have another question also, but I guess I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on
Sure.
that if that works. Yeah.
I'll jump in super quick just to say that I've said something similar. I don't know if I've said it in debates because I haven't done debate recently, but on calls, I've said that it's kind of sadder if you're deriving your meaning from God, because that means you need an external locus of meaning in order to, value yourself. And I don't think that that's A, necessary, or B, particularly healthy. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you that, I wasn't born with a purpose, perhaps. And, there's nothing that's particularly matters lest I assign it value personally.
Right.
And the same for other people, and that should be sufficient and enough. Well, Brady, what do you?
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I've got to the point where I don't look at life as having purpose anymore. I look at life as having potential, and I think that's just a different outlook. I think we have the privilege, I guess, of taking our cue from the world around us. Like, look at what the universe is doing. To say the universe is fulfilling a purpose, I think would be a misnomer. I think it's apparent that the universe had the potential to do what it's doing, and it's actualizing certain potentialities. And I think that's sort of what life is. I think we all have different potentialities, and we have the privilege to actualize them. To say that I had a purpose, if I don't fulfill that purpose, then I failed. But to say that I have potentials and I actualize these potentials versus some other potentials, I think that it helps to put life in a different perspective. So sorry for the alliteration there with the P's, but I just think that's given my life so much more pardon the pun, it's given my life so much more meaning to say, oh no, I'm actualizing a potential, and I'm choosing which potentials I want to actualize. Like, that thrills me and motivates me much more than chasing some purpose that I don't. Even when I believed that there was a God with a purpose, I didn't really always know what the purpose was. I just felt like I was always chasing it. And there was this broad category of your purpose is to glorify God. Okay. But apparently even the people that God is going to judge are going to glorify him by him judging them. So I don't really see what the big, I don't see how that solves anything, because apparently God can get glory from anything. So where I'm at now, I think potential versus purpose is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself something like an optimistic nihilist, in the sense, if I understand nihilism correctly, in that I'm not pessimistic about life having no purpose. I would just say that my nihilism is supposed to be like a freeing thing, where, like, okay, there's no objective purpose, and I think that's the case even if God exists. So I can give my own life purpose. And that's
I actually like that. I like that. Optimistic nihilist. I'm gonna have to think about that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have,
there are plenty of pessimistic ones, but
Sure.
Is there another caller? I have another question. But maybe. Oh, okay, cool. So another thing that kind of pertains, that I don't know if it really pertains to my last topic, but was I don't think that God can be proved with philosophy. So I see on all these debates. I mean, I've been watching Matt and company, debating with Christians. I mean, that's one of your guys' shticks of the show, is the Christians giving and other theists giving their arguments for the existence of God. I think this is another thing where I guess I don't see a lot of atheists going for the jugular again, in a sense where I don't think God is actually an argumentative thing. Like, it's not a thing that can be proved through arguments. Like, you can give a consistent argument for you can give a self-consistent argument for anything. Which is why I think logic is actually, people call out, oh, you need to be logical, but logic just means you need to go from A to B to C in a sort of quasi-logical, in a quote-unquote logical way. But that doesn't mean that your logical sequence maps to reality. So William Lane Craig or anybody could give a really, really coherent argument that has very defined, sophisticated steps going from A to B to C, but there's no there in terms of physical evidence. And then actually there was a call yesterday on the line where they were kind of alluding to this, but they didn't quite get there. But so I don't think, again, I guess the short of it is, God is not an argumentative thing that can be proved through arguments. It has to be proved through evidence, because things that can be proved through arguments are basically concepts, and God isn't a concept. Me is a concept, but he doesn't exist as a concept if he, she, or it exists. So yeah, that's my thought.
I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you on that. I think that if he existed philosophically, you probably could make your way there. One of the reasons that I'm an atheist is because I don't think that there's any existing coherent definition that's logically consistent, internally consistent, and then comports with the text that it's purported to align with or be assigned to. I think all of that has problems. So I guess what you're saying, I would just agree with, is that, you know, if God does exist, you can't, like, I could create a concept of some sort and then use a philosophical argument to demonstrate that concept is probable. But whether or not it elevates to the level of existing would require it interacting in some measurable way with reality. Right. Is that kind of what you're saying? Am I getting the gist of it?
Some of it, but that last line with the probable thing, like, you would have to, your idea would have to purport with what we know about the laws of the universe, and and even if it did, I mean, there's all sorts of theories.
Well, then God's out the window anyway, because most of not all of them.
Right.
All of
there's all sorts of. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of like physics theories. Yes. Yeah. There's all sorts of physics theories that will sort of, you know, given a particular form of the universe that the physics theory lives in, seems reasonable, and it's mathematically sophisticated and such. But if the data might not show that, and so I think you need more than philosophy to do something like that. And lots of people, and I imagine people wouldn't like me bad-mouthing philosophy in that way, because some people think, some
people think it's the best,
and it is. But yeah, but
it's the only thing
there's more to it than just thought. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I disagree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have anything to contribute aside from that.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, makes sense. We do have at least one more call, so we have to let you go, Carlos. I'm so sorry. But I enjoyed having the chit chat with you. I'm glad we fit in both of your questions. And have a good rest of your day. Bye. See you, Carlos.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, we will take one more call, and then I would say that we can read super chats after, but I don't even think that we have any super chats because I'm not as interesting.
What are you guys up to? What's going on, y'all?
I'm not as interested.
No chat
I'm not as interesting
tonight?
as the rest of them. That is okay.
There's probably a slew of people on my Facebook page talking about this whole discussion right now.
Where are they?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, like, yo, what are you guys doing? But
right, everyone's talking mad game all the way up to this. Where are the calls? Where are the calls, guys? Here's your chance. Real time. If I will save one line if somebody from Brady's Facebook page calls. You're watching. If you're listening to this, I will save one line for you. Call now. Call now and say, "Hey, I'm calling from Brady's Facebook page." One line, or I'm going to call you all cowards. Cowards. All right, we're going to talk to Evan. Hello, Evan. You are on
Shannon.
The line. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, no, I actually was excited to see you on today. I like your angle very well. I mean, everybody loves Matt and Aron Ra, and I do too. But anyways, I am atheist. Okay. I left about 10 years ago. Okay. And before I left, I was at a Unitarian Universalist church. They called themselves. But there was a quote that was given. I don't remember. It was about some guy who, in World War I, some extreme circumstance, blah, 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 had to make a decision to kill or not, right? But the idea was that in the moment or upon the act of seeking to harm another, that person loses whatever inherent rights they could conceivably have to their safety. Which, when I've heard you and others give comparable analogies, so with the blood transfusion, right? So if I were to commit a violent crime and upon my brother, let's say, Jeffrey, I love him to death. And with a blood transfusion, he could be saved, right? And so you pose the question, is it moral to require me to give my brother or a stranger, but I'm the one who caused the harm specifically, that's relevant to where I'm stuck at. Mm-hmm. Is it moral to make me give a blood transfusion? Right. With the previous thought, the act of causing harm, like I really believe that. Like I'm not saying that I am correct, but where I'm stuck at right now is that I think personally I would be obligated to. I believe I should be societally required to give my blood to keep him alive because I caused the harm. So help me walk through that, where with that thought in mind of in the moment of seeking to cause harm, you lose your rights to safety. How does that hold up? Why? Because a part of me can see how I could be wrong. I just lean harder that I'm not. Does that make sense?
If I could just throw this in, but I would love to hear Shannon's response to it. But I think what you're talking about is justice, not necessarily morality. You're talking about how to make something that went wrong right, as opposed to what is outright right in the first place. So I think those are two different discussions.
I think that's fair.
I do see where you're saying, and you could be right. My thought is, though, that I was thinking, and it was connected to that in part, but the other part is that society in general does agree, aside from justice, that someone is responsible for the wrongs they do.
So I have a couple of things to say. One is that I'm not sure how that would be practically enforced without allowing somebody, due process, for example. So
right.
allowing,
of course, yeah.
You could reasonably create scenarios where, you're making somebody, donate blood or an organ or whatever to somebody else when it was not in fact them, because in these scenarios you don't have time to make that type of assessment. But let's just say that for sure, somehow in this hypothetical, we know for a fact that I did it and I did it to you, and that if I don't give you some part of me, I'm going to die. Now I could make an argument that, emotionally and empathetically, I should feel compelled to do that, and I likely would. But let's just say that I didn't. If I didn't, in that scenario, the question then becomes, for me, what rights are we willing to take away from people who we perceive as doing wrong, and to what extent does that go? So if the first thing that we're willing to say is that you now lose your right to bodily autonomy in the micro sense, do we also lose it in the macro sense? So for example, what I used was, a blood transfusion. And one of the reasons that I use that is because it's easy, right? Like, you're not going to die from it. But let's just say that it was a heart transplant that was needed. Like, do you have the right to then kill me to take my heart? In the same scenario, or do you have a stop, like mentally, at what won't conceivably or realistically likely kill you?
I see what you're saying. So here's, I'm not saying another angle, but another piece of the puzzle for me that I realized I hadn't even voiced. Which another piece of the puzzle for me is that it's always okay to keep yourself alive, safe, and well. And so in my scenario, this is extreme. I'm not saying to upholding this in practice. I'm thinking in philosophical terms, just because we're online.
Neither one of us are stabbing each other. We're fine.
Yeah, right. So, but but so what I'm saying is with that in mind, so going back to me, I stab my brother or I do some whatever, and Jeffrey now has every right to keep himself alive, safe and well. And also coupled with, I've already lost my rights to safety. And Jeffrey is obligated to keep himself alive, safe and well. And so that's where I'm saying, where is Jeffrey in the wrong with physically imposing on me, like even by force, to do the blood? Does that make sense? Like,
that's what I'm saying. I think there's a blurring of categories between these are things that we've worked out in society in different ways. What's self-defense versus what's, an attack. What's justice versus what's
So Jeffrey himself doesn't have the power or knowledge and capability to perform a blood transfusion. So he would be dependent on society to facilitate his lack of function and
society's
securing his life. And so do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying it's a connected thing where in tandem, both society and Jeffrey Jeffrey is doing his thing and society is saying, okay, yeah, we agree. We're facilitating your lack of ability to uphold your safety. And mine I've lost.
I get what you're saying, but I think that it has broader reaching consequences. Like one, for example, like you don't have a right to take anybody's life. Like Brady said earlier, this is kind of eye for an eye shit that we're talking about now.
Exactly.
And two, like we're talking about like retribution to a certain degree. Like you did it to me, so I get to do it to you. Like I get to cause you whatever physical harm I feel is necessary.
That wasn't even in my mind. No, that's not even a thing.
I don't know if I accept the premise that once you hurt somebody, you lose the right to personal safety. I think that is like a dramatic slippery slope, because then we get into personal safety from who? From like, I agree, like self-defense. Is it like if you need to retain your own life?
Saying, but if you're going hunting, right? Like if you're going hunting, okay, and all I've got is a knife or a spear or a fishing pole, right? I'm accepting the risk of harm, right?
Yeah.
And so if I wind up getting hurt in a manner, I've lost my rights. That's how it is, because that other creature is going to keep himself safe. That's
right. And in this scenario, if you stab your brother and he fights back,
eye for an eye. It's not about eye for an exactly. So Jeffrey in fighting can't keep himself alive.
You're going past that. You're saying this is already done. Like this is already done. Like this, we're no longer in an active conflict.
Right.
And now,
the event ending we're going to, is where I'm not considering.
Yeah. So like what? Because this conflict took place, you're basically relinquishing your most basic right as a result of that, which is your right to bodily autonomy. Like your right to determine what happens to your own body is now forfeit as a result of that. And I'm not willing to go that far. I think that's a really risky scenario.
No, I agree. And I'm really glad you guys talked over the dynamics with me. I know it's a dicey topic, so I really genuinely appreciate you even willing to go there with me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you had the question, somebody else probably had the same question. And I'm sure they're furiously typing in the chat right now. All right.
Probably. And I'll look at them. Yeah. So.
All right. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Bye-bye.
I've got good news, Brady. We do have some super chats, but we're not going to read them now because we have one last call.
Okay.
We have one last call. I don't know if it's from your Facebook page or not. I didn't look. Let's find out.
Okay.
All right. We are going to touch. Hi, Joe. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, good evening. Slight gush. If you ever seen the movie My Dinner?
What movie? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, My Dinner with Andre.
I've not. I've never heard of it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I want My Dinner with Shannon because you'd be fascinating to talk to, but that's the end of my gush. Okay. So did my question come through? Oh, yeah.
It did. It just says, how does understanding intent intersect with morality?
Okay. So like I told the call screener, I am in no way endorsing slavery or anything like that. I'm just sort of using that because it's been sort of a common conversation here. So I'm going through my life right now, and I'm doing things that I think are moral. And I'm almost positive, at least some of them, if not a lot of them, are going to turn out to not be moral because of my lack of understanding of how the world works, how society should work, how I should interact with other people. I mean, there's already things through my life that are that way, and I've changed in order to accommodate my new understanding. So if I am in ancient Sumeria and I am a slave owner and I think that it is good and it's proper and this is the way society is supposed to work and I'm fulfilling my right role, am I being moral? And if I'm not being moral, then is anything I'm doing right now moral?
I think I understand what you're saying. So are you saying that you perceive, so you're talking about like in the Bible, it basically says, it says where you can buy slaves and which slaves you can buy and how to pierce them when you can keep them and stuff like that. And that's the holy book of the time. So that's what people are turning to for morality. So would they have known it was wrong is the question that I'm hearing. The same way that you maybe have not known things are wrong and then found out that they were. So that is a state of awareness that I think is different from whether or not that thing itself is right or wrong. That thing itself being right or wrong, I would say that was always wrong and always will be wrong. You could potentially make an argument that they weren't aware that it was wrong because within their moral framework, it was perceived as permitted. But I would argue that by any definition of morals that makes sense, it never should have been to begin with, and their moral framework was faulty.
I agreed with you to an extent.
Okay.
Maybe even the whole way. So if... Can you see
the differentiation between awareness of what is right and wrong and what actually is right and wrong?
That's kind of what I'm disputing. Because if
you think what is right and wrong has changed over time?
I don't know. I'm still working that through. And it bothers me if it is. So if okay, let me put it this way. If what is right and wrong is distinct and separate from awareness of what is right and wrong, then that means that right and wrong exist outside of thinking minds, which doesn't seem correct to me.
No, I think that it exists. So quickly define what morality is for me.
That's where it all begins.
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah, I should have been prepared for this. So morality is what is best for thinking beings within the metrics of fairness, empathy, reciprocity, and the fourth one I can't remember, cooperation.
Okay, so the reasonable definition of morality. So if you applied that definition of morality, let's say, to the past, do you think that it would adhere to that definition of morality? Like to the Sumerians owning their slaves? You would say no, clearly, because you did. So I see where I can kind of see where you're getting caught up, because like morals don't exist out in the ether. I think morality is a concept that we as humans created and are perfecting as time goes on. I think that that's the only real reasonable way to view it. I don't think that, they exist out there for us to just grab and be like, oh, that's a moral, I can go get it, right? Or that we have access to it in that sort of way. I think that our concept of morality first started like really small. It started with our individual, tribes of people that we were looking to protect, and then kind of expanded out to broader society. as time went on and now is more likely perceived globally, because as we accumulate broader understandings of what we mean to each other and how we interact with each other and how those interactions either benefit all of us or us as individuals as like one kind of large entity of humanity, we're able to refine those concepts. But morality in and of itself is, you know, what is best for us as a group, and then gets refined over time. And I don't see that as a struggle, because it's something that we made and we defined and is being refined over time. I think that it's fair for us to look at it as we perceive it and understand it now, and judge the past based on it, knowing that they had a less robust framework than we currently do, because it evolved along with us. So I can actively say that they were wrong and confidently say that they were wrong, even though they may not have been aware that they were. Does that make sense? Anybody? Did I make words that make sense?
No, I love the way you broke that down.
Did I lose you?
Oh, did you not hear? Or did we not hear you, or did you not hear Shannon?
No, I heard you. I was trying to respond, but please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, in response to Shannon, and I love the way she broke that down. I'm thinking about, one of the last stages of my deconversion, because to be quite honest, the paint is still kind of not dry on the wall of my deconversion. This is, even though it's several years in the making, I'm still kind of drying off like, oh yeah, that's where I'm at with things. One of the last stages for me was working out my definition of morality and how I see morality working. Then when I went back to people in the online atheist and skeptic community, I said, yo, you're saying almost word for word the exact same thing that I worked this out to. And when I look at morality, I agree with what you said, Joe. I think it starts first with self-interest, and then a consideration of the interest of others. And then you do get this idea of reciprocity. And then you start adding in things like empathy and altruism to kind of buttress the system. And your circle of, I think everyone knows morality when it comes to what offends the self or what benefits the self. Even though there's some things that kind of, you might have misplaced priorities. You might prioritize your happiness over your safety. And so you might do things that are immoral in your own eyes, but because you misjudged things at certain times. So I think in the same way that we practice law, we practice medicine, we practice law, I think we practice morality in the sense that we're figuring out how to arrange and maybe rearrange these priorities so that we're doing what's best, A, for ourselves, and then B, for the people in our community. And then the circle begins to expand, not just my community, but my city, my state, my country, my world, my species, other species. So when I look at the past, I would say that people of the past, I don't think any of them were less moral than we are today, except for they may have had their moral circle a lot smaller than we do. Like today, I think we push it out to expand to broader categories where they might have said, hey, we can enslave those people, but we don't want to be enslaved. If we were to be enslaved, we'd see that as immoral. Well, they didn't see that slavery was moral, and now we see that it's immoral. They saw it as immoral too, as long as they were the ones being enslaved. If you had to force them to apply to others the morality that they wanted for themselves, I think they would have to agree with us that, oh yeah, this is wrong, because I don't want this to happen to me. Anyway, I think the idea of recognizing morality is a matter of how big you're willing to make that circle. And I find it very interesting when I started cross-referencing and comparing the morality that I was growing into with other skeptics and atheists. I saw that very many of them were having to consider, wait, should I be vegan? Because my definition of morality and maximizing well-being and minimizing harm, do I extend that to other species? And I think that's just a natural progression of this idea of how broad am I going to make my circle of morality? So I think we do.
And if I could,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll break in there a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
doesn't that become sort of a meta morality where you are talking about intent versus action? So, and so I intend to be moral, and I am doing the things. I'm doing the things that I think are moral, that I want to achieve those moral metrics, right? So there I am, but the actions that I actually take, they may or may not be moral, and I can't say I don't have any idea. I mean, I have an idea of whether or not they are, but I am necessarily ignorant of some of them, right?
I mean, I think that there's nuance in morality, and that's kind of like a beautiful and terrifying thing about it, is that
you're right.
It's super context dependent, and you have to hold the concept up to scrutiny in multiple scenarios, and sometimes they butt up against each other, right? Because you know, what seems right in one scenario ends up being a wrong thing in a different scenario because they're entirely context dependent. But it all comes back to me to the primary principle that I'm attempting to, you know, mostly reduce or prevent or not cause harm. I think that that's the core of it to me. I think that attempting to increase human flourishing is a laudable goal, but that also forces me into a position where I have to say that there's a moral imperative to like have altruistic behavior, and I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far. So I think to me, the crux of what is moral is not causing harm. But then there could be a conflicting with that is I also have you know, a moral right to be able to self-preservation. So if someone's attempting to harm me, then that context allows for me to break what's seen as the base of my moral imperative.
Right.
So, like, I don't know if that makes sense, but
you're right in. I'm sorry. I was going to say I think you're right in that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I literally just keep saying I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I was going to say is I think you're right in that okay, maybe I should rephrase it this way. I think that if someone attacks me, it is immoral for me, and they're trying to kill me. It's still immoral for me to kill them. I think that whether or not they intend to kill me, it's immoral. But I also think that it's understandable. And I think that those are two different things. So I would try and preserve my life if someone tried to attack me. But I don't think that it would be a moral thing for me to kill them in response, even if I would, even if I did.
Gotcha.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. So you don't think it's ever moral to harm. Go ahead, Brady.
Sorry. Right. Well, I'm saying we work these kinds of ideas out in situations where, let's say somebody's involved in a case of vehicular homicide. You don't charge that person with murder, right? You charge them with manslaughter or some lesser charge, because we do take into account intent, but we also take into account what was someone's responsibility to know something. What should they have known at a certain stage or in a certain context? What should they have considered? Even think about police using
but that's legal culpability versus morality. Those are two different things, though.
But I think one is based on the other. I think we're basing culpability on this idea of a moral principle that we could all identify with. Like, we don't make laws that we think are immoral, right? Or at least we try not to.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I mean, in the States,
right.
Yeah, sure. But I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. I think that we're in, violent agreement here at several levels. So I'm probably just taking up time to go read your super chat.
Good things to think about.
I enjoyed I enjoy discussing the minutia. So thank you very, very much. We're up to 2 super chats now for the record. Woo!
Hey!
All right, Joe. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye. Okay. I will take one person in this queue says that they are a Brady supporter. So we are going to bring her up before I start reading super chats. We'll have to take this call super quick though. Hi, Candace. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today, aside from how cool Brady is?
Is this?
That's pretty much.
I think I know who this.
Yes.
Candace, are you active on my? I was going to say, Candace, are you active on my Facebook page?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Hey.
I just wanted to fulfill the whole thing. Where's Brady's Facebook page, friend? So I'm here to support Brady, and of course, I'm a fan of Shannon as well. And so I just wanted to come on and say, hey, everybody, Brady, I'm here. I enjoy what you're doing. Congratulations on everything that you're right, you know. Congratulations on everything that you're doing with the podcast and all of the interviews that you're doing. I try to keep up with them and everything. So I just wanted to come on and say there is a Brady supporter in the chat.
Thank you so much.
That's it. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Cool. I'll catch you on Facebook. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
That is a lovely
no problem.
last call. Thank you, Candace, for being a little ray of sunshine. Have a good rest of the day, Candace.
Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Yep. See you.
Bye. Hey, we're up to 3 super chats. That was a very nice last call.
I got some
your Facebook page.
Some warriors on my Facebook page. They be going in. I'll spark a topic, and they just like they're sitting there waiting. They're like, "Yo, let's talk about this. Let's get it in." So yeah, Candace is on point.
I'm not super active on your Facebook page, like for interacting with people, but I sometimes scroll through it.
It's good reading. It's good reading. If you want to get your blood boiling, or you want to get your thoughts percolating, it's good reading.
Sometimes it's not the best reading, but a lot of the times it is very, very good. It runs the whole gamut. Gamut. All right. Yeah. You did it. You made it through it. Your first call-in show.
Hey, we survived.
There are many Brady supporters in the chat. I see lots of people saying, "Oh my God, this guy's great. You have to get him back. Oh my God, he's so good. Oh my God, told you."
I can't see the chat. Is there a way that I'm supposed to see the chat too?
Oh, I popped it out. Like it's on the YouTube. Like you know how the live chat scrolls along the side. I popped it out and I put it on a screen that's like way over here, so I can only see it periodically. But but every once in a while I'll peek over. I'm not like Matt. Matt's like some sort of like weird person that can like be playing a game of chess on one screen, having a conversation in the chat on another screen, and still taking a call.
My computer's so fragile. My computer's so fragile that I'm afraid to open any other window. Like I don't even breathe on my computer while we're doing this because I don't want it to like do something crazy. So
when I was talking to you, the camera was like, "No, we're done now."
Yeah, and I swore that I was going to go get a new computer because of that, and I didn't. I just got a little extender box to plug my USBs into. So
well, it lasted. It made it the whole time. You did it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Where's our fearless leader, Erden? Are we ready to read super chats?
We are ready. We have more than you think. All right.
Actually. So $10 from James Call. Give Shannon a coffee table. Yes. I might stab you. And then we can have a conversation about the morality of. I've threatened to stab a lot of people today. That's going to be a clip. That'll probably be a YouTube short if Jimmy does. From Kobe Soda, $10. Thank you very much. Thank you for the amazing show. F you, Jimmy. It's very important that we let Jimmy know how we really feel about him over here on the line. Question every claim. Jimmy, we need some more Be Good in the future.
Hey,
some of that love for you.
I'm with it.
You should. I'm telling you, man. My job here was just to show you to more people so they can realize how fucking awesome you are. So the more people can listen to you. Now I just get to go.
Subscribe to Icapod. Check us out.
Do it.
Yeah.
10 pounds from Faye. Shannon, if artificial wombs could have embryo fetus transferred at any stage existed, how would that change society? I.e., many abortions are married women with kids. Now they would the new kid. I like that as a moral question, but I think that it kind of shifts. I think if you could have an incubator and it would sustain the life, I would have no issue with that being the case. Whether or not it would be a moral imperative, I'm not sure. I would have to do some like analysis, like some speculate, like mental introspection on what that would mean. I think that if like the broader society took on the role of taking care of the child, perhaps, but I would have to think about it more. What do you think, Brady? That's a good question. Interesting question.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can answer that directly. I would love to hear your response to this. I know that there was a time when I began to think through these issues, and I said, at some point, the prospective mother has this awesome decision to make, and I say awesome meaning just the weight of it. Even when I worked out my moral framework, I said, I wonder how this would apply to the issue of abortion. If I think about self-interest being this top tier, then the interest of others, and then this reciprocity between the two, then empathy and altruism, how would I apply that to the issue of abortion? And I had a very difficult time, though I thought I could actually make some inroads into that discussion. But I, as a man, I didn't want to do it alone. So I won't really touch that other than to say, this is why God and gods have been so important to humanity. Because several times tonight in these discussions, especially around abortion, you see how much nuance and how like the conversation is not so cut and dry. But if you can just go and say, but God said, then you don't have to do all this work. And so, not to say that God is a cop-out, but the person that just wants to throw the God card down on the table and say, but God said, you almost feel this moral imperative to run with that because it's just super easy to do that until you run into the issues where your God's morality is not so moral. Then it becomes just as sticky on the other side of the fence. So really these moral issues are not so cut and dry, no matter how you attempt to solve them, whether it's the skeptic or the secular humanist working out their moral framework, or whether it's your holy book that was written so long ago and our society has progressed so much that we can't even go by that anymore. So there are no quick answers to these issues.
I so agree with that. I think the God of prescriptive morality is just devoid of any meaningful content. Because once you just say, well, God said,
right,
like your metrics for assessment no longer exist because it's just entirely prescriptive. God said it, I believe it, that settles it. And then there is no content, right? There is nothing by which you are making an assessment.
Right.
At that point. Yeah. It's just entirely following directions. And that's a dangerous place to be. Like we don't get to explore any of the nuance or like come to any meaningful decisions with that perspective at all. So I agree with you on that. Cool. Yeah. All right. Good question. It's Morality Day. It's Morality and Abortion Day over the line today. Everybody's favorite. Olivia Daw, 5 pounds. Thank you very much. So good to see Be Good here. I remember the interview on Shannon's channel. Thank you. It was a good interview. I enjoyed having you on. Speaking of, what are some of your favorite kinds of music, Shannon? Oh, a music question for me. I'll take it. So I am a massive Bob Dylan fan. Huge fan of Bob Dylan.
Props.
Down in the Flood is one of my favorite songs. I am also a Stan Rogers fan, which is like a maritime traditional folk artist. I was a huge fan when I was younger of Fiona Apple because I like that sort of like angsty, poetic songwriting. I listen to a lot of Ray LaMontagne. And I love Janis Joplin, The Doors, a lot of older, I guess. Don't want to age myself too much. Like folk rock. music. My favorite music to listen to, like if I go to a music festival, I'm not at the main stage. I am usually at one of the side tents listening to just somebody with an acoustic guitar just sing to me. That's my idea of like my happy place, because I don't know if you can see my guitar behind me, but I love a acoustic folk is probably my favorite genre. But yeah, that's my music that I like. Judge me as you will. I'll take it. I'll take it. $5 from I Got Cookies. Thank you, I Got Cookies, for being such a great moderator. Thank you so much. I Got Cookies. Today's show was brought to you by the letters B and Q. Yes, it was indeed.
And I just came back from Brooklyn. That's what's the BQ? Oh, that's the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. I was just on that yesterday, so that just kind of popped into my head. Yeah.
So it really was. You were on there yesterday.
Exactly.
It quite literally basically brought you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. $9.99 from I got D Blues. Thank you. There no tax, so just thank you very much for donating to the show. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here. $9.99 from Bryn Poo KC. Great show. # coffee tables rule. Everybody's on my team, and it makes me so happy because I know he's in the other room seething right now. And if there's anything that I live for, it's watching him get agitated.
Do you guys have recliner chairs?
No. Oh God, no. God. Oh no. Wow. No, I'm not even willing to even contemplate fighting that battle. No.
So I'm just thinking from a man cave perspective, like when you're sitting in your chair watching whatever you're watching, I know you're not supposed to do this. I put my coffee table sometimes. Like, what do you put your feet up on without a reclining chair? What does your feet go up on?
So the negotiation was that we would get one of those L-shaped couches so that I could sit in the corner. So the corner of that L-shaped couch is my spot, so that my feet can be up and my back is still against the couch. And he actually argued with me. He was like, "Who sits in the corner of an L-shaped couch?" I'm like, "I do, because I'm not allowed to have a footstool. I'm not allowed to have an ottoman. I'm not allowed to have a coffee table. So now I do." So this is the couch we're buying.
Paul, you got to be able to put your feet up, man. It's a different kind of life when you can put your feet up. It's actually the same,
he doesn't
right?
do relax.
Kick your feet up. Okay.
If you think that man is capable of relaxing, you have another thing coming. He is capable of working. I think that's it. I think that might be it. Wow. I'm in so much trouble after this show. $5 from Ray Gatto. No text. Thank you. Just thank you for the donation. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. $10 from Larry Fishman. In the realms of higher physics, objects can randomly appear in the spaces where they are absent. For example, a coffee table. I'm trying to seriously. A coffee table may randomly appear in a space where one is needed. That's right. That's right. It's just a bunch of quarks. They just popped into existence.
But those things,
in this configuration.
they pop out of existence as well. So I don't know what that means.
Who knows? Who knows how these things happen? I'm not a physicist. Don't ask me.
I think that the rolling up under the couch, I think that's just the best idea, that it can pop in and pop out when needed.
I think it's totally fair idea, because it wouldn't be on the floor, which is his problem. It wouldn't accumulate anything more than the tray was. It would be in the same spot my tray was. But if I wanted to pull it out to set something on, I could still do that. And then just push it back in. I'm very good at finding. I think I found it.
They have those coffee tables where like the top lifts up and comes toward you, like the real functional ones.
Oh, dear God, no.
No? Oh my gosh.
No, it's got component parts. Are you kidding me? And you could probably put stuff inside it. That would be a big no. Huge.
Wow.
Not a chance. Okay. All right. $6.99 from Tim Yursky. Would love to have Brady back again.
My God. Thanks, Tim.
That is what is up, everybody. All right. Next one. And you're right, Tim. You should come back. With a host that's better than me. I'm garbage at this, but it might. You have to start somewhere. $5 $5 from Regato. Hello and great show from a fellow atheist and admirer. Thank you so much, Regato. We appreciate it. I'm a fellow atheist and also admirer. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Are there any more? Oh my gosh, they did send a bunch of super chats. You guys are the best. I was like, oh, I'm only going to have one super chat to read. At one point, I was like, I'm not going to have any. This is going to be really embarrassing when we get to the end of the show and I'm the only host who doesn't have any super chats to read. From Cluckenvar, $10 for the coffee table fund. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
One day, Paul will realize his cognitive dissonance on this subject. I have an inch-long scar on the bottom of my foot from glass left on the floor.
Oh,
Go
wow.
fuck yourself, Jimmy. Just saying. Just saying. Next time I accidentally kick over a coffee, I'm taking a picture. I'm posting it on Twitter just so that people can just to recruit people to my team. $5 from Scott Loco. Just no text. Thank you. Thank you very much for your $5. Super appreciative. You're the best. Thank you for supporting us.
Man, all this live love. I got to start doing live shows on my channel.
Isn't it great? You should.
Yeah, I've never done a live yet. Yeah. So
after we had our last conversation, I noticed that you actually changed your avatar on the channel to be something other than the little shadow head guy. I was so happy.
I had other people tell me, but when you said it, I was like, yeah, you know what? I need to make this right now. Yeah. So. And we have a graphics guy on our podcast. One of the guys is a graphics guy. So I'm like, Albert, this is to you. We should have more graphics. So hook us up.
Albert, dropping the ball all over the place. Can you imagine? Is that our last one, Arden?
Nope. So that was actually a second one.
I don't know if
Scott,
you can hear me or not.
There are like 3 more.
If you're talking, I can't hear you. Can other people hear Arden? I don't understand what to do now. Arden? Yes.
Okay. So that was actually a second one from Scott. You have got like 4 more after this.
Oh, okay. So I just thought it was the same one and that we weren't progressing. Thank you for your second one, Scott. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. $5 from John Muir. Shannon Q and Be Good ain't nothing to fork with. But Jimmy can go fork himself. That is the appropriate attitude to have on this channel. So thank you very much, John.
Yeah.
$5.
I wonder if that was a connection to the Wu-Tang shirt too. I don't know. Wu-Tang Clan is nothing to fork with.
might have been. All right. From James Call. Have you all seen how many MAGAs are calling for a baby boom with cash incentives for babies? Of course, the right color, of course. No, because I am so Canadian. I have no idea what that means.
Wow.
I don't.
That really? I wonder.
So, like, to pay people to have babies? So they're really wanting
to get their numbers up. Yeah.
Isn't there better things to spend money on? Like, there's children existing right now wandering around in America that could probably. Do we really need to pay people to have babies?
I think it's just. I don't even know if they're really trying to do that as much as they're just trying to get the word out. Like, hey, we need to do something because our numbers are dwindling. Everybody go out and do your part, and your part is having more kids to get the Republican numbers back up.
I wonder if that ties into like preventing abortion too, like trying to make it illegal. Like the more people in desperate situations you have, the more likely they are to like become dependent on and not just dependent on a system, but resentful. And that resentful people who are vulnerable or can be easily radicalized.
I'm this comment is like one of the reasons why I'm thinking like, man, do I really want to live here anymore? It's so bad here.
I hear so many people say that.
Help us. You guys in Canada, help us. Pull us up. Pull us up by your bootstraps.
I would take all of you if I could. I promise.
Yeah.
I would. It's not up to me, sadly, but like if you came here, I could like hide you. Like I could make you like one of my personal refugee. I already told Arden I'd take her too. Whenever she
wants to go. Offered me a spot in your garden.
I did. Yes, I did. I did. It's a really nice garden. I like it.
If I showed you guys, we just had a chemical spill near where I live. So now we can't drink the water after midnight tonight. We can't cook with the water. God. We probably shouldn't shower with the water. I mean, it's every day there's something else happening here that's like, why am I living here? It's bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. From Dante Verona, $5. Shannon, what do you think is the best album from Bob Dylan? And why is it Highway 61 Revisited? I don't remember album names very well. One thing you should know about me is that my rote memory is tragic. It's awful. Like, remembering people's names is something I'm not good at. So I'm not going to remember an album name. I'm not. I'd have to look it up and find out what songs are on it. Do you listen to Bob Dylan, Brady? I'm going to look up this album to see.
No, I've only listened to maybe one or two like of the classic songs from the Woodstock era, but nothing beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's on this? Desolation Row. Oh, that's good. Like a Rolling Stone is on that album. I like songs about Jane. Is that on there? No, that's not. Lay Lady Lay is another one I really like, but that's on an earlier album. Yeah, I don't think this is the best one. Ballad of a Thin Man's good. Like a Rolling Stone is good. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna agree. I'm gonna disagree, but not provide a counter because I can't remember album names. I would have to look up my favorite songs. I think whatever one Lay Lady Lay was on, I really enjoyed. I actually have his autobiography on the shelf over there. It's really interesting. Oh, no, now it's both of us. So I'm assuming that means that we're done super chats. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you, Brady, for being our guest today. Everybody should go check you out on Itchapod. Am I pronouncing that right? I want to call it Itchapod. Itchapod.
Yeah, I think who said that? Derek said that recently. Mythvision said that. It's Ichabod. It's actually a play on. Yeah, in the Bible, someone was told to name their child Ichabod because the glory of God had left the temple of the Jews' temple. So we said, no, it's not Ichabod. Now it's Ichabod, the podcast where the glory is gone. So yeah, go check out Ichabod and see what we're up to over there. But hey, thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. And yeah, like I said, it's just still weird to see me on the screen of the line when I was checking out so many of the great hosts and co-hosts of this show. So glad to add my little piece. Hope it was worth something to you guys. And yeah, till next.
Well, there's the groundswell of everybody saying that they want to see more of you. So I'm hoping that happens. And thank you so much to our call screener today, who was in the background working really hard for us, and all of the moderators in the live chat. Thank you so much for all you do. Every one of these shows, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you. And thank you so much to Arden for being the best producer ever. And I mean, I didn't have to talk to Jimmy today. So I mean, win-win. She killed it, and I didn't have to talk to Jimmy today. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Make sure that you go check out Brady if you want to and are so inclined. You can also check out my channel, Shannon Q. It's okay, I guess. And as always, everyone, elevate the discourse. Bye.